Hut, hut. Let's party. Ready. Boom. Attitude, effort.
Yep.
Scott Stallings. You need to twist your bottle. Is there any Noble or...
I don't know.
Are we representing Kirkland? Here, maybe Kirkland will call us. Turn that thing sideways. There we go. Kirkland.
And Rain. Yep.
Rain paying you, or you just support them for free?
That's the bottle that I pulled out this morning.
Rain and Kirkland, call us. What's up, buddy?
It's good to be here. Finally back in town for a little while, and we're very sweaty, but that's kind of how we roll.
Good workout. Representing my man Felice here. You asked me who he was earlier. So listen, man, I'm going to talk God first. I almost mixed golf and God. Mm-hmm. God first, golf second. Then down the line, we'll talk about family and how we met and all that fun stuff. Anything you don't want to talk about, you just say, Lee, I don't want to talk about that. And I'll say, okay, sir, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm kind of an open book. I
love it.
I'm past that part of my life.
I love it. So let's go to the most important part. Obviously, your faith life. Grew up, your dad was a pastor, right?
Mm-hmm. He still is.
It's awesome, man. Mm-hmm. Still in Oak Ridge?
He's Sturkey, just kind of right up the road.
So was he Jason Hayes, lead pastor? You sat there?
He was we moved to Tennessee. I was born in Massachusetts. My dad's from West Tennessee. My mom's from New England. And moved to West Tennessee. My dad got a job in Oak Ridge. Had nothing to do with church, faith, or anything. Just kind of with the plants and Y-12 and all the nuclear facilities there. And kind of in the midst of, just kind of growing up there in East Tennessee. We went to a small Southern Baptist church, and just kind of a unique raising of, watching your parents basically fight every single day over just the most, random of things. I mean, you don't think your kids pay attention to that kind of stuff, but I remember it was like it was yesterday. And to see a complete change in, how your parents spoke to each other, loved on each other, and this and that, and they went through experiencing God, Henry Blackaby. And my dad felt like he was called in the ministry in college and kind of ran away from it. And 40 years old, 2 master's degrees, went to seminary.
That's awesome.
And left on Mondays, came back Friday. And, a kid in middle school, that was a big deal. Your dad's basically checked out. But at the time, checked out's kind of a tough way to say it, but he's just not there.
Yep.
And now I'm 38, 2 kids of my own, and understand the calling that the Lord put on his heart, and to see the kind of influence him and my mom have made just in the community that they surround themselves in, and kind of anything and everything. They're the ultimate ministry family. They kind of struggled to not be needed, and they continually find themselves in situations that, maybe more have asked of them than maybe they bargained for, but, that's kind of how they are, and that's how they've been my whole life. And I think that it's just interesting to, having 2 children of my own now. I have a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old, and just constantly remind myself that they don't miss anything. And I put myself in that situation, and I remember sitting my parents down and be like, I got no idea what's happening with you guys, but y'all literally went from just kind of bitterness and just sort of discontentment, and to just truly loving admiration. And I'm like, what in the world is happening? They basically sat down and said, we kind of ran from a calling, and, need to kind of step back into it, and, the Lord needs to be the center of our home. And, that was kind of a, no more of a learning moment, just kind of, by experience and observation. And I said, all right, let's kind of figure this out myself, and kind of what that looks like. So, I was very blessed to kind of have that, kind of example set at a young age, and, went through high school, was pretty involved in, FCA and different things at church and high school and into college. And, I try to, continue to have that represent, whatever kind of we do within golf and on and off the golf course. And it's pretty easy to be in that situation when you play individual sport. Mm-hmm. It's pretty easy to identify based on what that score is at the end of the day. I'm 65, I'm 73, I'm whatever. I finished second, I finished dead last, and, it's a tough road to go if you really don't have a basis of identity in something other than yourself. And unlike a team sport, golf is unique in the fact that you can do everything wrong and have a good result, and you can do everything right and get a bad result. And to people that don't play, that doesn't really make any sense. But I can bounce it off a tree, cart path, whatever, and go in the hole, and I can fly it off the pin and go in the water. And, it's kind of a nice, microcosm of life, and just kind of understanding of just kind of always be ready, never put yourself in a situation where you'd be surprised, and, you're never sitting back on your heels. You're always on your toes, ready to embrace and, kind of adapt to kind of whatever comes your way. And, kind of a basis of faith kind of establishes kind of a different way to look at it, and kind of understanding to try to meet everyone where they're at. And, it's always easier said than done, but at least that's sort of my mentality as far as everything I come into contact on a daily basis. Some days better than others.
No question. Wow. Well, here's what I heard. The bitterness and discontentment, I think we all go through that, man. Like, all of us are called to Jesus, and God has big time purpose for everyone. Now, is that going to be being the pastor of a church? Is that going to be mission trips? Is that going to be selling everything you have and moving to a village that no one's heard of Jesus? No, I'm not saying necessarily everybody has the same calling, but we're all called by Christ. And when you're kind of doing that tug of war and you're not really pouring in, of course there's bitterness and discontentment because you're not living what Christ has planned for you. And that fires me up, because that's the vicious seesaw tug of war that I see so many people go through. And it's like, man, it's pretty simple to see what's missing. Come on, dog. Even with myself, looking in the mirror, like, no wonder I haven't done my Bible studies every morning like I did for 3 months. No wonder I feel off. Mm-hmm. Or I haven't, I didn't sit down and pray over my kids before they went to school like I normally do. Or, I always pray over them before they go to bed. Well, it's funny. Last night, I was tired when I got home, and I just kind of prayed over them as they were walking through the house towards their rooms instead of being intentional and going. And I'm laying there in bed and I'm just restless. And I'm like, man, you idiot, just go. And I ended up falling asleep. And this morning I wake up and I'm like, dadgummit, all I had to do was walk to their rooms, and I didn't do it. But it's awesome how you learned that so young and your parents set that standard, because that is awesome. And I would like for everybody to hear that, man. It's just like, if you feel off, if you're bitter, if you're discontent, pour into Jesus and watch it change everything. Mm-hmm. And
I think that, like, if you'd have told me at, 12, 13, 14, like, that was going to have a, deep, profound moment on your life, I'd have probably said you were nuts. But now, like, seeing, like, the young, children that I have and interact with on an everyday basis in our house, like, I mean, my kids don't miss a thing. Mm-hmm. And, like, I went and practiced yesterday afternoon, and my son was with me, and, like, just the questions that he was asking. He's not a golfer, and, he'll go out there, and, I mean, he's around it enough. But, man, it was like, man, he saw that. Like, if he sees that, it's something that he has no interest in, like, what does he see that I'm not paying attention to? And my wife and I were going with our church small group, and we were driving around, and I was like, I think just consistently being aware of, like, we kind of tend to always look outward, the people we come in contact with, each and every day. And said, next thing you know, like, the guy that I'm driving to school at 7:30 in the morning is like, I mean, he's a direct reflection of everything that we kind of set before him. And I think it was encouraging and accountable at the same moment of just like, goodness gracious, as far as going in there. And so, you can learn a lot through your kids. And looking back at my childhood and everything, that was an understanding of, one of those, like, you may not understand it now, but, down the road, you'll love and respect, the decision that my parents made. And moving forward, it wasn't always easy. And, but just to see kind of coming out on the other side, like, a man following a calling, that wasn't easy. Yep. And, nothing worth having is easy. And, that was kind of everyone sees that, whether it's, career, this and that, but literally like backing up and surrendering to a calling that, you felt at a young age that you sort of ran from, and you'll kind of see it come to fruition later in life is pretty cool to see. So, that was a great example my parents set before me.
I love it, man. Listen, I'm not Dr. Phil. All right, I'm far from Dr. Phil. All right, I'm not a psychologist, but I've lived a lot of life for a man my age, and I've mentored a lot of young dads and couples and families. And here's the deal, man. Teach all you want. teach, teach, teach. It's not taught, it's caught. Like, if you're a positive person, your kids are going to be positive people, normally. Like, nurture over nature, the big argument, right? Like, it's not 100%, but if you're positive energy, you have a positive outlook on life, you don't complain and make excuses all the time for every little thing that goes wrong, you're positive, then your kids are probably going to be positive. If you cherish your wife, and your kids can see you have a disagreement, obviously, but if you're screaming at your wife every day in front of your children, then that's what your daughters think is okay for a man to do to them. That is what your sons will end up becoming. Like, you can teach that do as I say, not as I do parenting does not work. They are watching you are their hero, man. Like, not you, everyone out there. Like, I let my kids down every day like everybody else, but hear him, Jesus, and it's not taught, it's caught. They're watching everything, man. They're little sponges, like, especially when dad's around, which all kids aren't blessed with dad. All kids aren't blessed with financial resources. All kids aren't blessed with a lot of things. But for all the dads out there, moms out there, they're watching every stinking thing you do, and you are imprinting them by not the things that are coming out of your mouth, but the way you behave and the way they watch you interact with other people, the way they watch you interact with life and struggles and adversity. So, but once again, it wasn't easy, but you watched your dad and you caught the things he did. And even though in the moment it might not have made sense, but it made sense later. That leads me to my next question.
I can't wait.
You ready? Triple F, no athlete left behind, baby. No athlete left behind. All the kids out there that don't have dads and don't have great resources, donate your money. Scott's going to make a big donation today. No, but seriously, the balance. Right? Like, your dad had and I'm gonna shout out Alicia Smith, the best woman on the planet. Put up with my ass for a long time. God love her. It has bothered her in the past when she watches me pour into everybody else. Right? Like, I'm a little bit like your parents. I have a giving heart and a giving. I feel like God called me to impact others and be a resource for people, especially when they're struggling. And then at times, when I get sucked into the vortex and I don't have balance, which a lot of times means I'm off or I'm not diving into the Word and taking my personal health serious. I'm give. Jason Hayes, shout out to Shoreline Church. He used to always tell me, man, your cup's empty. You're pouring out your cup into everybody else. Like, eventually you got to take care of yourself. Like, when it comes to your dad, your dad's gone during those middle school years. Well, you're on tour during your kids' middle school years. Or it's training camp during a month, like 11 years, that means, and plus college, that means 16 months of my life I was gone. So over a year of my life, my wife raised the kids on her own. And same thing with you. And I know your family's on tour with you a lot, but sometimes they're not. So, like, where's that balance for a father that has a calling from God, is trying to make the world a better place, is trying to chase greatness, and become the best in the world at something to show their kids, hey, man, like, if you believe in something and you're good at it and God gave you a gift, chase it relentlessly and don't give up and pursue it. But where in the world, bro, do you find balance to where your wife still feels like she's the priority? Your kids don't feel the way you felt as a middle schooler. But at the same time, they're going to have to sometimes, because they're going to understand later, Dad did this because it's different for men. And like, where in the world do we find balance as fathers and husbands when we're chasing greatness and trying to become great at something? And not to mention, we feel like we just know in our gut we're wrestling with the fact that it's God's calling for us, but it's going to pull us away from our families. Like, all those times, if Alicia watches this, all those times that, like, she felt like she wasn't number one. All of us deal with it with our wives. Maybe you don't, but most men do.
Yeah.
Right. But it's like, man, it's a tug of war, bro. It's like the seesaw of, like, babe, I'm like, I get it. Like, where's the balance? I'm rambling now, because where is the balance for men in these situations, or is there any? Are we all just trying to figure it out and live in prayer and look back on the back end when you're 80 and say, well, I screwed that up, but I did that right?
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily like I think the moment that you try to keep score and quantify everything, I said you're inevitably going to lose, because not that I operate in like a defeatist mindset and whatever. It's just reality, and I think that my wife's a realist, and she's very positive to a certain extent, but it's she's very accountable and understanding of, like, you're not doing us any good and you're not doing yourself good if the moment that you step out of the door and you can't commit to being there. So we tell our kids a lot, like, we're going to be where we're at. Like, if I'm here, I'm here, and I'm not going to be somewhere else. And if I need to be somewhere else, and that kind of works its way into. One of the guys that works with us, chaplain on tour, we talk about, like, what are your three things, and you can only be, of those three things that you're good at, you can only be good at one of those at a time, and that circle is constantly moving, and kind of just the inevitability of kind of what our life is, especially as much as we travel on the road. And I think when you have that kind of in the back of your mind, and the opportunity presents itself to be present. That's the biggest thing I challenge myself every single day. We were at Shoreline yesterday and talking about what your burden is. And, that's truly a constant struggle for myself to be present where I'm at, to understand the opportunity that's in front of me, and hopefully not shy away from the opportunity, but step into it with some boldness and be able to speak, whether that's an opportunity in here, or whether that's some of my college guys that I work with, or high schoolers, or my own kids, or my family, or, kind of whatever that is. And, opportunities come when you're least expecting it. And, the enemy's looking to an opportunity to put you in a spot where, you can catch you off guard. And I think that's where I kind of said, I don't want to be the guy that's on my heels. I want to be on my toes and, kind of be ready for anything. And, kind of getting into like a little bit of, some, health and fitness kind of related. That was kind of how it started. I was ready for nothing. I was said, as long as I make birdies and all that other stuff, everything else take care of itself. But now I started having kids and this and that, and life after golf was not really existent, because it was golf course and basically exhaustion, and hopefully wake up and the wheels really started getting spinning. And my opportunity to live life to the fullest was basically stopped in its tracks, just because I had no baseline of any type of health or wellness or any type of program, and completely took my own life and health for granted, and had a wake up call come in there, and try to be understanding of, man, if we don't get this sorted out, like, it's going to be a short trip around. And understanding that this is it. That's all I got. I get one of these, and if I don't take care of it, if I don't push to the limits, feel like what it's capable of, like. And you want to talk about creating some resilience, understand that, every single day you're going to have someone try to knock you down. You've got to be able to stand them right back up and look them in the eye. And that's, life, faith, job, work, anything. The guy that runs you off the road, driving down the interstate, all that kind of stuff. And, if you have no, and, physically fit is one thing, but just, the mental aspect that kind of works into that, and understanding just that faith, life, work balance, all that stuff kind of working all together into one thing, and just sort of being ready to just sort of handle life as it is. And I didn't do the greatest job of that, and I surrounded myself with people that are better than me, and still try to do that every single day, and learn and continue to grow, and understand that I'm not the smartest in the room. In the moment that I think I am, it's time to, reevaluate myself and understand really how much further I have to go, and, continue to kind of push it down the road every single day.
I love it. So that reminded me of a time that we had when I was, in the NFL, you have such a team environment, a lot of military folks come and speak to us. And I always used to get frustrated with the military comparison, because I've never had to carry one of my buddies off the field without a leg or without an arm or dead. But the more and more I just kind of sat back and said, all right, Lee, quit being stubborn and being so pro-military. And my respect for the military almost felt like we were disrespecting them by even acting like football was similar. But once I had a couple of buddies come into my life that God placed in my life that are high-level military folks, they're like, Lee, it's not about that. It's about the fact that it's teamwork, and we have to prepare. And then after we go on a mission or a game, we have to then come back and say, how did we screw that up and be better next time? And there's a lot of similarities, right? So we had a big-time Navy SEAL guy come speak to us. I forget his name. I should probably remember, but I don't. And he said that what he encouraged us to do, because it was very similar for us. Like, Alicia knew, all right, training camp's coming. Peace out, homie. See you every fifth day. I got this. All right, now it's the season. it's not every fifth day, but it's nights only, and I'm traveling on the weekends. And football's the best pro sport to play based off of our season and the way our family structure is able to be had based off of only the fall season. So by the new year, you kind of transition to off season. Basketball guys, baseball guys, I mean, they're all over the dang place. You guys are all over the world. So it's insanity what you guys do.
We win.
Yeah, yeah. You guys got it. I don't want that. So during football, even though it was here and there, we were still able to build a pretty cool schedule. Football is, once again, the best professional sport to play as an athlete with a family is football. NFL, no doubt, 100%. I'll watch you and I don't have any close friends in the NBA, but those guys are all over the place. It's crazy. But what he said every day when he would get home, he would get out of his truck, and he had this imaginary hook at the front door. And he said he would hang his gun and hang military Brad, whatever his name was, on the hook, and now I'm a dad. And I'll never forget that moment. And I try to do that my whole career of, like, if I need an extra hour of football, I'm staying at the facility to do it. Mm-hmm. If I need to come back over here in 2 hours and get some recovery in, I'm staying and doing it right now. Because when I get home, I'm dad. And doesn't mean I was perfect dad or I was always present, but hope everybody hears that out there, man, coming from you, someone who's had so much success. And when you are at home, be dad, be husband. When you're not, grind and be the best in the world at whatever you got going on. Mm-hmm. And that's big time. I love it. Well, now that you've shot your shot, team sports, no pressure. Only the individual guys have all the pressure. I got it. So how in the world, like, listen, man, everybody can play golf their whole life. Doesn't mean they're good at it. My entire life, golf was on the weekends when we were at my grandparents' house. My grandfather, Beaverbrook Country Club, my whole life. Like, my grandfather grew up playing golf forever. I didn't realize until about a month ago that if me and you were playing together, I couldn't look at you and tell you what club I just used. All right? Didn't even know that was a thing until I met Scott Stallings, and I'm over at my grandfather's house, and I'm like, man, I need to learn this game because my dog's a player, and so all the cool things, but golf for a lot of people in this community. So not going to wear you out, but explain to me, I don't even know how it works. All the people out there that might think they know how it works, give it to me. You're in Oak Hill a few weeks ago. The Bills are there. Josh Allen and Von Miller are walking around. They're doing their little interview stuff. When do you get to town? You're playing in a tournament. What does it look like?
Just like a tournament week?
Yep.
I'll just give you an example. I got a tournament where basically the day before Halloween, I got a tournament 2 weeks. Sea Island, that's my last tournament of the year. I'll be down there Monday morning. And, like, if all we had to do is show up Wednesday night, play Thursday through Sunday, like, guys would play every week. But it's the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday stuff that sort of gets kind of old, redundant. And, this is, I've been able to play for a long time. So the practice and prep from the golf course perspective it's still important, especially if there's nuance. They change some stuff to the golf course or conditions or whatever. But for the most part, man, we kind of play the same places over and over again. So there's a lot of experience, past history, and, you can kind of go and find stuff that's bothered you in the past and kind of just figure out why. And, it's tee shots or, certain things that just sort of get in your way and kind of go over there and try to overcome it. But yeah, there's sponsor obligations. Basically anything that can happen Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Wednesday's a pro-am. It's kind of the charitable component of the event. And
there's a pro-am at every tournament?
Every Wednesday. So you get 4 of your new best friends that you may know, you may not know. And to be honest, as much as the pro-am kind of gets a bad rap, for the most part, like, you're playing with good dudes.
So let me get this straight, because once again, I know nothing.
Uh-huh.
These dudes, it's just up for bid. The highest bidders get to play golf with these guys.
Yeah, a lot of it's sponsorship. Your company comes along, and whoever the title sponsor has teams, and whether it's client entertainment or just kind of up to them how they figure out how to do it. But it's a unique environment. Golf's the only common ground sport. Like, you and I can go out there and throw the football around, but as soon as the pads and helmets come off, my butt's walking to the sidelines and be like, I hope they have a good time out there. Same thing. Like, Jan and I can throw around and, sit there, but as soon as that ball starts, touching the 90s, I'm going to go sit in the stands and, eat some popcorn and cheer them on. As soon as basically we talk about when the lights come on. And, golf is one of the only things that, basically the day before a competition, like you could be on the same golf course that I'm playing a 4-day tournament the day before. And that's the only sport that does that. You'll have people do ride-alongs and this and that, like whether NASCAR or whatever, but that guy's just barely touching the gas and cruising along, hope someone has a good time. But I mean, literally, like, they're playing the same golf course, the same conditions, same everything that we do. It's just the day before the event. So it's a unique thing in the fact that, most people, when they're at their job, think about doing what I do for a living, when they're not doing what they do for a living. Mm-hmm. And so it's a unique experience because I do love my job. I'm, very proud of the opportunities I've had to play for as long as I have, and feel very fortunate to go and represent the tour, each and everything that I do. But it is unique. It's like so many people's like, oh, you want to go play? It's like, no, I don't.
No question.
I still enjoy practicing. I enjoy preparing. Been very fortunate to help the guys over at UT for a little while, and kind of that's. I don't know what the next, chapter of my life looks like, but that's something that's very near and dear to my heart, and something that I enjoy, kind of pouring into them, not necessarily from a golf perspective, but just sort of like being around them. Mm-hmm. But, that's kind of it in a nutshell. And, Thursday comes along and you play, 2 days, have to make the cut, top 65 in ties. And, every tournament's a little bit different, but I'm just kind of giving you the basic every run of the mill tournament. And, Sunday, hopefully you're playing late and, grab your stuff, pack up, and either go home or move on to the next event, or you have an outing, or, anything's possible, to be honest.
It's awesome. So I was in Buffalo, Elio de Palo, little Italian restaurant in Buffalo, as a golf tournament every year at a country club called Wanaka, really close to where I lived my first few years for the Bills. Mm-hmm. So he calls me, he's like, hey, you want to play in this tournament? I'm like, yeah, man, great. Sure. Sounds awesome. I'll be there. So show up, play. I get paired with some waste management guys. Well, it turns out they're pretty close to the top of the food chain. So great folks, awesome guys. Won't name drop on here. They were just good dudes. So become friends with the son. They're like, hey, man, come out to Arizona. Happened to be the same weekend as a Super Bowl. So Ryan Fitzpatrick was like a big brother to me in my NFL career. He lives out in Scottsdale. So we go to Super Bowl, and I go to the waste management tournament. And I'm assuming that's a little different vibe than most tournaments.
Correct.
But it was my kind of vibe.
Yeah.
It was awesome. And I'm like, bro, is this how all golf is? And the guys are like, man, they used to let caddies like race down this par 3 and tackle each other, and there was beer everywhere, and there were people throwing stuff. They said
it's the party they let us play golf at is what we determine as.
And it's about the only one though, right?
Yeah, some tournaments try to like recreate, certain things about it, but I mean, the 16th hole at Phoenix is its own thing. I mean, it's a golf hole inside a baseball stadium, pretty much.
That's where I was at.
And, yes,
it's the par 3, right?
Yeah.
So that's where I was on like the third row.
You experienced it all.
Okay. Yeah. So
did you go when they were still throwing stuff in the stands, or they stopped that?
They had stopped that.
Yeah, you used to basically it was a caddy nightmare. And they finally figured out a way to get it where if you were going to give something away, you could go and store it beforehand. Because when it first started, like your caddy was just lugging all your crap around. Guys would, whether it was sponsor stuff or whatever. I remember one year Ryan Palmer took a bunch of golf balls and wrapped $20 bills and was throwing basically beer balls into the stands. And so people would just go even more nuts than they already were. And one guy took. I remember one year Mickelson threw footballs, signed footballs, and I mean he was for a golfer, man, he was flinging them in there and just drilled a guy. And so that was all good things have to come to an end. And that caddy races they had. I mean, we've had streakers, we've had basically anything that you can think of happen at a golf tournament. It happens there.
Yeah. I can see why. So that was my one experience. Like I said, I was literally in golf heaven, because we always had our training camp in Rochester. Mm-hmm. So right there with those big three that we were talking about earlier, and I didn't have enough appreciation for it to go over there and truly enjoy it. But I know that a lot of the guys did. Mm-hmm. So, you mentioned the word caddy. are all these caddies former players? How in the world do you choose a guy to do life with? Is it more of a personality thing? Because you got to spend literally you got to spend your life with this dude.
Yeah, I've spent more time with John in the last 9 years than I've spent with basically anyone in my life.
No question.
That's probably good for me, bad for him. He's probably like every day just like, man, how do I put up with this guy? But I think, it's definitely, it starts kind of as a work relationship, and, kind of anyone that's, around me or whatever will probably say that it turns into something else or it's not. And that's kind of how I operate. People become family and, sort of, into a close circle as far as who I'd, choose to work with and try to push to be one of the best players in the world, each and every day. And, it doesn't always work like that. Some people can choose to kind of keep it, hey, this is who I work with, this is who I do life with. But, man, I think that we're all called to, be able to kind of keep those things together. And, that's kind of how I choose to operate. And there's a lot of different ways to do it. You have former players. You have, guys that just love it. I mean, there's not really I could have you come caddy at a tournament. That would be hilarious.
Awesome. I would have no idea what club that is. So how often does he choose the clubs for you?
He presents the information. It's my decision. It's like he's the catcher, I'm the pitcher. He gives his best suggestion, but ultimately, like, I throw the ball. And that's the kind of the easiest way, and it's on me.
So is there
now if he is adamant, it's like absolutely not. Then I know that he has seen enough shots. Yeah. Or he's seen enough bad stuff happen that day. He's like, all right, let's just try to, let's get the horse to the barn here. Kind of like and I think the difference where the really good experienced guys is they know when the gas is on the right. They know when they see certain shots, it's like, all right, my guy's rolling today. Like we're gonna change the game plan up. But also too, like, the PGA Tour is not what your good is. It's how you can compete with your bad. And because everybody's good is good, but like, can you compete, B, C, D game? I mean, some of the greatest players in the world have won tournaments, like, hitting one shot. And to a non-golf person, be like, you have all these plethora of shots at your disposal. But then, you get out there and it's like, man, I ain't got it. And then basically you just commit to, hey, I'm going to play this one shot I know I can go out there with. And then hopefully, like, make a couple 10-footers and see what happens. Yep. And the difference where those guys can make is, put it in football, like, man, we're going to go out there, we're going to run, we're going to pass, we're going to play action, we're going to do this and that. And the next thing you know, like, the run sucks, the play action doesn't work because the run sucks. So, man, we got to just sit there and fling it, and we got to spread it wide and, hopefully, and figure it out. And that's where a caddy can come in. And Steph is like, all right, we don't have this option, so let's just figure out how to make this one work and, live to fight another day. And that's where those guys can make a big difference.
I love it. It's familiar to football and the fact that, like, I'd go out there pregame, and listen, you're in a 6-day race in a 100% injury world to feel decent, especially at the end of the year around the holidays. So I'd go out there pregame, and I'm like, why legs? Why today? I got to block Von Miller. Why in the world are my legs dead today out of all days? And all of a sudden you got to get creative and change your stance a little bit, and now your elbow's hurting, so you can't punch with your right hand. So if you're right, I was a big right hand puncher. So it's like, then my elbow eventually would flare up every year. My wrist would break or whatever because I was right hand dominant and I was a little bit more catchy with my left hand, kind of throw this one, catch with this one. And, things just start getting beat up, and you're like, all right, I got to change what I do and adapt. And then certain times, the good old, am I allowed to say diarrhea on this family podcast? The good old diarrhea gets you the night before the game. That's what people don't realize is like, man, maybe this dude only slept 2 hours last night because he had the flu. He's not going to tell you that. You're not going to tell everybody, you know what, I didn't come off the tee today like I wanted to because I had diarrhea last night and I had the flu or I didn't sleep. No, you're just going to own it. You're going to own it. You're a grown man. But all those things, like you're saying, I can't imagine in a golf world. Football is one thing, but in your world, I know if I break 90, I'm happy.
Yeah.
But sometimes it feels like there's a foreign object in my hand, bro.
Yeah.
I have great hand-eye coordination. I go play ping pong right now, bowl, football. It doesn't matter if it's a ball. But then other times I'm holding the club and I'm like, what is happening?
Yeah, we tell our guys what the PAO is, where you plan, adapt, and overcome. And like we've set it forward a plan. We know something's going to go wrong. It's in the moment that you think, hey, the world is spinning in the right direction, the sky is blue, this and that, and the next thing you know, man, just the golf is such a weird game, just like life too. And then, we're just going to accept the fact that, that's happening. We're not going to walk around on eggshells, waiting for something bad to happen, but we're going to understand that when something doesn't go our way, and accepting responsibility. Like that guy that's going to throw it deep, like he knows that, hey, I'm going to sit there and fling it. If it gets picked off, like I'm going to deal with it. Mm-hmm. Same thing. Like if I try something, if I choose to be aggressive and I go out there and put my best foot forward and it doesn't work out, I'm not going to walk off and be like, oh, that shouldn't have happened. Like, man, I dealt with it, assume responsibility and go and, kind of overcome the adversity that comes along with it and, be ready to, come out on the other side. And, the faster that you learn to deal with that and respond quicker, there's, responsive versus reactive. And we always I want my guys to be, response takes thought, reaction takes nothing. Mm-hmm. And I want to be responsive to kind of behind the ball, and I want to be reactive over the ball. And, basically all throughout sports and life, there's, commonalities, and that's kind of the biggest thing that, behind the ball, we can sit there and take into account everything, thoughts, feelings, emotions, whatever. But as soon as I turn basically 90 degrees, like that goes out and I become pure reactive to the environment that I set myself in. So we do a lot of stuff before, basically like some pre-snap stuff. I mean, I'm not a football player. I know enough to be dangerous, but I can adapt enough of the mentality side as far as like, you get in that huddle, we got pre-snap, we got this. Next thing you know, that defense is totally different, and we got to react. Mm-hmm. We can't sit there and be like, you only got 3 timeouts, and you got 25 seconds to call the play. Mm-hmm. You better be reactive pretty fast and be able to step down and kind of work from there. And golf's the same way. We just have a little bit more time.
I love it. I love it. Well, so back to the caddy thing. So one thing I tell people all the time is when you're in just a boys club environment, when you're born with male genitalia, you're born with half a brain, and you try to get to a full brain at some point in your life. Mm-hmm. And when it's all boys together, you see certain things with maybe it's Tiger handing somebody something walking off the tee box, or it's all these things, boys just being boys. So with your caddy, the times you don't listen to him and it doesn't go your way, is there friendly banter of like, told you dumbass? Or is it always, ooh, that sucks for him, I'm just going to let it be, and we're going to go on to the I'm sure everybody has a different relationship.
No,
you and your caddy, how is it with you two?
Probably, I mean, I definitely have moments of immaturity like everybody, but I think, there's times where I would be, if we are having a discussion, ultimately, like, he'd be the first person to tell you, like, man, it's your name on the bag, not mine. Mm-hmm. You're asking me for advice. And if we get to, like, a 50-50 call or whatever, like, that's up to me to own it. And, like, and he'll say, man, I'm, like, I this is what I think. But if you, like, this is your show. I'm here to help advise in this situation. Like, I need to know that if we're going to go whatever it is, like, you're going to be able to deal with it and move on. Like, this is not going to be detrimental for the rest of our day. Mm-hmm. And this is not going to affect us. And if I can't look him in the eye and be like, I'm not sure. If it's not sure, like, I'm going to do what he says. But if it's also, too, like, man, I can deal with this and move on. And that's kind of where, you see some of the younger guys, like, I've definitely gotten older and crotchier. Is that a word?
Grouchy.
Crotchier. It's not really a word.
We know what you mean.
Yes. But definitely ornery. That would be the first thing. And if I see a young guy belittle a caddy, that is literally my number one pet peeve.
Oh, 100%.
And anybody that would, go out of their way to belittle someone that is literally giving their effort, all their effort to try to help someone, be the best at what they are in the world of golf. Like, yeah, that's tough for me. Yeah. and if it gets around that there's a young caddy or whatever that's just getting abused, like, even if I haven't seen it, like, if I know enough about it, like, I'll go confront somebody. And just the fact of, like, man, there's no time for that. Yep. And Like, just because you do something a little bit better than some other people doesn't give you the right to just go treat someone like less than human. And unfortunately, there's a lot of times in situations they are. But, man, the guys that are truly the best at what they do, like, there's a huge respect and admiration for what those guys go through week in and week out. And I'm very fortunate to have a guy that, is beside me that, is definitely one of the best out there.
I love it. And it's very familiar to my tight end coaches. I was with them more than my families.
Mm-hmm.
So at times it would be like, hey, man, and I can name them all, first name, their wives' names. I did life with these dudes. Like if I was being coached something that worked for, I'm assuming all golfers' swings aren't the same. I'm assuming that there's one club, and maybe I'm just a novice golfer who doesn't know anything, but I really like my 7-iron. You mention the number 5, immediately I'm negative. I'm like, I don't hit that. I can't hit it, right? So I'm sure there's a club in your bag you really like, and there's at times you're just on a given weekend or whatever, you're just comfortable with, like, you just feel good. Like, just give me that. Whether it's a wedge or whatever, I don't know. I'm not a golfer. But my point is there's certain things that I would do that because I was so big and stiff and my skill set was different that, like, he might be coaching the room on technique, and I'm like, hey, man, like, that ain't going to work for me. Number one, I've never done that. And number two, I won't be confident in my stance doing that. And I think that's where your caddy is so special and where my tight end coaches were so special is like, hey, man, when your hand's in the dirt and there's 80,000 people screaming and you got to do your job, if you're trying to do what I want you to do as opposed to what you know will work and you believe in, then I am setting you up for failure, and I will not do that.
Yeah.
But there's always that friendly banter when my way doesn't work.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, you ready for my way yet? That's the stuff I'm talking about, not the talking down or abusing or just the friendly, like, boys club talking trash of like, hey, man, listen, I'm just here to coach you. Don't worry about it. Yeah. But at the end of the day, like, do it your way. And if your way works, I love it.
And golf is a little bit different in the fact that there's so many different parts of the game. And, like, you had a certain, position that you played, and that was, like, your responsibility to deal with that. But, like, how the running back, like took the ball and ran it, whether he was running to your side or not, like, that's not your responsibility. Like, that's his responsibility. I'm responsible for all parts of my game. I have people that help me and help me evaluate information. But the perfect example was, basically last season I had the best year of my career. 2022, by hands down, best year of my career. Made it Tour Championship. Highest ranked I've ever been in the world. Basically everything all happened at once. And I saw one small part of my game that, probably needed some evaluation, and sort of went about my way on my own to kind of evaluate it and figure it out. And I fixed it. Never once considered the detriment it was going to have to basically the best part of my game. Best part of my game was irons. Like, been a good iron player my whole career, and go from having the best season of my career to the next season basically doing all the parts of my game as good, if not better, than I did the season before, but basically completely took the staple part of my game, something I never really considered about, and made it the worst it had ever been by about 100 places. Went from basically like the worst approach I've been on careers, 80th, 90th on tour, went to 190, and I drove it better than I ever did. And all based off this one thing I went to go do to fix this one little incremental part of my game. And a little bit of it was, if you don't have that evaluation around you, if you don't have that close-knit group to be able to ask questions and, and a little bit of it was, I was kind of doing it on my own, practicing, kind of this one area, and didn't realize the overarching effect of, like, what it was doing to the rest of my game. And then next thing you know, we got a guy that does analytics for us and my caddy to be like, hey, man, what are we doing to cause this? How is this? And, I got to have some protection around me, or else, inevitable, we're going to do something dumb.
Right.
And you don't realize the overarching effect, like, whether it's in life or that guy's like, he's never worked out a day in his life. And it's like, I'm going to sleep 8 hours, drink a gallon of water, run 2 miles, and work out 7 days a week. Well, that guy's screwed.
No
like, and there's no baseline, there's no understanding of anything. So that idea of incremental improvement without any kind of checks and balances, like, it just doesn't work. Mm-hmm. And so it's great to have some guys to be able to kind of get in there and speak into the day-to-day, but they're like that's a very, very small group that has basically unfettered access to be like, hey man, what are we doing about this? Mm-hmm. And it kind of goes both ways. Like, they have to communicate with me, but also, hey man, I'm doing this, what do we think? And I've gotten better at that. And that was kind of a perfect example. I was like, well, this won't have whether, and it was just kind of a nice segue into life. Well, just a little bit won't be bad. Like, this won't affect that much. And the next thing you know, it's like, I didn't really, to be honest, like, it wasn't like a huge part of my practice, but it was just enough. And just incrementally got worse and worse and worse, where I just was like, I don't even really know how to do this anymore. And I did it in order to gain like this much better in one area. And I just completely lost track of all this other stuff that I was great at. Because I saw this one, literally the best year of my career, and was like, hey, man, let's just keep doing that. Let's just keep doing that. And I saw this one little thing, and it was just like that much of a distraction that basically took 6 months of my next season to just go through the mud. Like, I was positive, I was working hard, everything, and just didn't realize the overarching effect that one little practice drill I was doing was just wearing me out.
It's crazy.
It's pretty wild.
It is wild. It's like, so I try to relate everything back to me, and not me, but just a football player, because that's where I was for so long. And it's like, my skill was blocking. That's what I was pretty good at. Best in the world, maybe. Top 2 or 3, maybe. It's up for everybody else to decide. But when I put my hands on people, they didn't get away. Well, guess who gets paid the most money in the NFL? Guys to put their hands on people and not let them get away? Yeah, if they don't play tight end. If they play those big 5 glass-chewing maniacs beside me.
Yeah.
But guys with a TE in the program, they get paid to catch passes, right? Like, if I go down the rabbit hole of like, man, I was, best 2, 3, 4 top blocking tight ends in the world this year, but man, if I could just catch 10, 20 more balls, I'd make X amount of more dollars. I would this, I would that. So I shed weight, lose 10, 15 pounds so I can run faster. Now I'm getting that butt whipped in the run game. So now what I was the best at, I'm 15th best. Still didn't mean I was going to run any faster. So rob Peter to pay Paul, kind of like what you're saying. Like, so many people in my career, hey, man, why don't you try to, shed down? I'm like, what? So then I won't be the best at this anymore? No thanks. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm going to stay the best at that, and I'm good. But it's just crazy how as athletes, like, you're so hard on yourself and the after action reviews, and you're like, all right, like, it's just a constant chase of greatness of like, this is where I'm weak. Because I think it's too, like, no matter how centered we are with Christ, bro, and how great our marriages are, there's always this constant ego of like, why am I not good at that? I got to fix that. I got to get better at that.
Yeah, but if we weren't wired like that, we wouldn't be where we are. And I think that's why you got to have – I got a guy that has nothing to do with golf, doesn't play, doesn't have anything, and just like he's like the voice that just randomly comes in on a whim and just asks like just kind of weird questions like, what are y'all doing about this? And they'd be like, and then all of us sort of look around and be like, we don't know. But I think having like that outside influence is pretty good, especially when it has no bias, it has no contingency. It's just sort of like, and that is harder to find than people think, because there's so many people that want to be involved in sports. But like, there's so many people like, dude, I would love to go in and evaluate NFL game plans. Be like, I never played a down in football in my whole life. Like, what gives me the right to do that? But some of that's, relationship and friendship advice. And, just finding like right people to go in there and, have conversations with. And that's not like a person that I speak to on an everyday basis, but like in a certain situation, it's like, all right, I need a little outside influence here to kind of help me evaluate. And, that's, to be honest, that's probably how Jason and I got so close.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah, but just in a situation of like, I mean, he doesn't know jack about golf. But just the fact of like, I mean, he knows me. And kind of like the situation, just kind of what we deal with on a day-to-day basis, whether kind of just managing life, career, family, everything that kind of goes around, and, kind of having a person in there to help evaluate and kind of keep all those, you might have some sharp edges, but they need to be be able to be rounded into form to a certain extent.
Yep. And Jason was always my guy too for that. And he knows all my darkness, right? It's funny. We were at breakfast the other day, and I told a story. We won't go down the rabbit hole. This is family friendly. And Jason's like, hey, oh, he's looking around. Like, come on, bro. Like, I'm like, I'm sorry, man. Sorry. I get a little out there. I've been hitting the head a lot. But it was just great how pure Jason Hayes is. He doesn't have any idea about a football game plan. Doesn't have any, like, he's watching it. He would tell me good game, but I'm like, do you really know I had a good game or not? You know what you're watching? You know? It looks like you blocked your guy all the time. But no, he's the best. And I think that's important. So something you said earlier, too, is Matty Montgomery, who does some other stuff here. My son was talking to him one night, and I'll put Brody on the spot. And, it's football season. And football locker rooms are a vicious playground for Satan. Vicious. At every level. And Brody was talking to Matty, and Matty was not getting on him, just leading him. Brody really looks up to Matty, and they were talking this and that. And Brody says, I'm one of the, best Christians on the team, or I'm always pouring into the guys, or I'm always doing this, I'm always that. And Matty's like, hey, Brody, if you are the best Christian in your group based off of everything you just told me, you're hanging out with the wrong people. And it's like, if you're the smartest guy in the room, if you make the most money, if you're all these things everywhere you go, you're hanging out with the wrong people, man. Like, get with people that are smarter than you. Get with people that have had more success with you. Get with people that do their faith life better than you, and just watch them, man, and grab them and grow from them. That's why I love hanging out with Jason. And I know Jason's not perfect. We think just because he stands up there on the podium every Sunday that all of a sudden he's Jesus Christ. No, he's not. He still sins every day. But hanging out with those folks, man, balance, chase greatness, but be present. Love Jesus. Be with people better than you at things, and it'll work out. And be a driven, borderline savage.
As savage as a golfer can be.
Yeah, right. I'm talking about everybody out there. Like the Scott Stallings recap, and then we're going to move on to your awesome family. But be a savage. But be a savage husband, be a savage father, be a savage golfer, be a savage Christian. Like, Old Testament God had savage moments. All right? Jesus came and showed us how to love everybody, right? So now we got both. But going after things and trying to be the best in the world at something is not a sin. Going after things and trying to be the best in the world at golf, football, if you want to be all the kids out there that want to be a dentist one day, or everybody that wants to be a veterinarian, be the best in the world at it. There's nothing wrong with that. But have the balance, be present for your family, love Jesus, be fired up. Your family, 2 kids. So how in the world, like, I left for 48 hours, got in bar fights, came back. Every once in a while, Alicia would go with me to like a road game, like if we were playing the Dolphins or whatever. For some reason, she always liked going to the Dolphins games. I don't know if that's because the Dolphins are located in a pretty cool place. She never asked to go to Minnesota. But no, Alicia would always pick a game. Miami, Nashville, obviously because it's close to home. If it was a playoff game, she would come. So my kids would go. But typically, I'm out. I'm right back. Right? They've been in school all week. I had older kids while I was playing. But for you, does the tour structure like all the European tournaments at the same time? Do you go over there and stay? Or are you bouncing back and forth across the pond? How is I'm sure the weather's obviously different, across the pond.
The European tour is different than the PGA Tour. It's the DP Tour now. That's what it's called. And we have some co-sanctioned events. They're kind of like middle of summer. But for the most part, we play in America. And like we'll have some, like we just had a tournament in Japan, got a tournament in Mexico this week. So the travel is, it's not like across around the world kind of all year round. We have one, like my family and I we spent a month in Europe. I played a couple tournaments over there, and we kind of made a before vacation, after vacation, kind of to and from. But it was just kind of that's middle of the summer and kind of go from there. But for the most part, we start at the beginning of the year in January on the West Coast, then kind of work to Florida, and then basically we follow the weather. Yeah. And that's, play outside sport. People don't like coming to tournaments that the weather stinks, so we try to find the best weather we possibly can year round. And some days we do better than others, but for the most part, that's kind of how we follow the schedule. And then we go and just sort of once May rolls along, everywhere's hot, and we just sort of endure through the remainder and kind of play through September and have a little bit of a break and then play the fall. And the PGA Tour is 49 events. Some of them there's two in one week, co-sanctioned or
crazy.
Back and forth. But I mean, it's the longest professional sports season in the world.
How many tournaments do you have to play in to keep?
You have a minimum of 20. You have to play 20 to remain your card, and you have to finish in the 125 in points.
What's your average? How many do you play in a year?
The most I ever played in 1 year is 37. My first year on tour, that's a combination of playing horrible and riding a heater. You don't get off a heater.
You keep going.
Oh my gosh. Like I caught fire and I was not, and I had a older guy that was on tour. That was my mentor, Kenny Perry, and he saw it and he said, if you have to keep playing. He said, don't even if you don't go practice. He said, just go out there. He said, you're playing so good. And I got on this 6 tournament run, man, and I just went nuts. And I missed my first 5 cuts my rookie year, and then at the end of the year I got on a heater and almost made the Tour Championship. I won my first tournament, and so I spent 337 days on the road.
Were you married?
I was. So, but we didn't have any kids, so it was my rookie year. My wife and I just basically did everything.
That's awesome.
But it was wild. My rookie year, I got my card in December of 2010, and been fortunate to have my card every season since. But that first year was nuts. But there was some developmental stuff, like mini tour stuff. We did 13 weeks straight on the road in a car.
About what you mean, you and your bride?
Yes. It was rowdy. Like we had this Honda Element. That's what we rode around.
Everybody's brains are spinning with you talking about rowdy times in a Honda Element running around the country with your wife.
We played this tournament in Oklahoma. That was my 13th straight. And I got done playing on Sunday, and we just looked at each other, and we're like, I wasn't playing for like 3 weeks, which mini tour days, if you weren't playing in 2 days, like you were doing something wrong. Because, I mean, basically, mini tours glorified gambling. I mean, you're just looking for any opportunity to play. And we looked at each other. It's like middle afternoon on Sunday. I was like, you think you got it in you? I'm like, I got it in me. And we just straight to the house. Straight from the middle of Oklahoma, nonstop. Straight home. Got home like middle of the morning. Slept for basically 2 days. Got up, unpacked the car, and we had one tournament where there was nothing. We ate Subway 19 meals in a row.
That's special. But once again, that's like you don't do anything in moderation. At a certain point, now you're competing to set a Subway meal record.
It got to the point. It was like, how many can we do this? How many can we do this? We came back from that tournament, Subway in Knoxville. That was like just like
had to.
I mean, it was only right that we did. I mean, probably hadn't had Subway since.
I literally had Subway yesterday for the first time. And by the way, there's no more $5 footlongs, bro.
Yeah,
those days are over.
Yeah, those are over.
Yeah.
But I mean, it definitely made you appreciate it. We have this story that we have people come to our house or whatever, mini tour guys, college guys. We have this DVD player, and no chance it works. No chance. And I was on mini tours. I had some guys sponsor me, give me some money to go play, and we had this tournament where this is 2008, and we had this tournament where the weather was just hellacious. Like, it was awful. We didn't play golf for 3 days, just hotel, and not a nice one. And we're just kind of just camping out and figuring out. This is in the Red Box days. No Netflix, no nothing. And we're like, this garbage hotel we were staying at, I mean, it had nothing. And we've got this DVD player, Walmart, and I was like, if I play bad, I'm going to bring it back. It was $34, something like that. Well, I go, and it was one of the days where, with all the tournament schedule and everything, like, we basically were going to play 36 holes in 1 day and just have a match, like, glorified gambling match. And winner was $50,000. Like, mini tour, that was all the money in the world. I mean, to all these guys. Like, they had a few tournaments like that a year. But it was weird that we played 36 holes in one day for that, which was nuts to even think about. Well, birdied the last hole, I finished third. Biggest check I ever made in the mini tours. And I was like, we're never getting rid of this DVD player. So every time we've moved, every place, it just sort of had a place kind of in throughout the house. And like, and every time someone sees it, like, I mean, it's not plugged in, doesn't have any wires, doesn't have anything. It's like, I'll remember that till the day I die. And just like understanding is like how far you come in like little precious moments like that. So
I'm telling you, man, so I closed on my family farm Wednesday. So bought it when I got my first deal in Oakland, have built it up to be, I call it my little redneck heaven. And we're selling it. Triple F. My kids are all older. We just don't get out there very much, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we've got some great folks buying it. They're wanting to do life there like we did for a long time. Anyways, so we went and spent the weekend there over this past weekend, and I asked my wife, I said, you good? You having any emotions? And she's like, Lee, and I'll never forget her saying this because it put everything into perspective. She's like, we literally have so many chapters in life. Like, this just feels like another chapter that we're moving on from. I mean, from donating plasma to pay my mortgage on my $67,000 house in Huntington, West Virginia. Every time you get in the car, it's like, please turn over. And you turn the key, and it's like, oh, thank my Chevrolet Bonneville that I drove in college. It was so musty. It was like an old, musty, lazy boy was the driver's seat. It was awesome / not awesome. And then early NFL days and the rookie year that you're talking about where you're just so nervous and you're just trying to make it and, you got your first house for the, and you're doing all these things. She's like, babe, this is just another chapter. Like, it was awesome. I love it, but I'm excited about what God has for us. And it was cool when she put it like that. But for pro athletes, man, of any sport, it's so cool. God is so good. And I love you, man. I appreciate you. I'm fired up. We got to get our wives together. Maybe we get my wife on the tennis train.
It's very competitive these days.
You can only imagine. You guys' wives are wild. They're more competitive than y'all, which is awesome. But dinner with the wives soon. Thanks for being here. I would say go get them, but that's what I normally say to athletes that have an expiration date. Enjoy it while it lasts. You're one of the few athletes in the world that can play till you're 110 years old.
I hope not.
So that's awesome that you help the Tennessee boys, though. A lot like me here with my Combine guys when they come in town. It's so stinking fun helping these guys try to go do what we've already done. So any of those Tennessee boys or anybody else you mentor actually wants to get out of the orange and white over there and get a change of scenery, they're always welcome here, like I've told you. But appreciate you, man. Appreciate you being around. Thanks for doing the podcast. Anything else you want to shout out?
No, man. I just think the opportunity to take experience from whatever walks of life that we have, and opportunity to not shy away from it and try to leave it better than we found it, and hopefully have an opportunity to make the difference for someone else, like someone made the difference for us.
I love it. Scott Stallings, my guy. Give me a HutHut. Can you handle it?
HutHut.
Oh, yeah.
That may be the first time I've ever said that.
Look at that. HutHut from Scott. He's about as good at that as I am playing golf. Lord help me. But my man, much love.
I appreciate it.
Done.